My name is Adne, and in this video I want to share my knowledge about the early game of Empires Apart. More specifically the first 2 to 3 minutes of the game. This video is meant for people who are totally new to the game, and for people with no idea what to do those few first minutes with, for example, the boar, the sheep, the villagers, and so on. This video was recorded with patch 0.6.4. Please keep in mind that if you're watching this video when a future patch is available, the information in this video could be heavily outdated. I want to address the following subjects in this video. Understanding the map, making use of the sheep, luring the boar, economy or military, and an afterword. You can click on the timestamps in the description if you want to directly jump to a certain subject. So first I want to talk about the understanding of the map and the way that the maps in Empires Apart are designed. Aside from watching this part of the video, I want to point out that you can learn more about the map yourself by just launching a custom game. And you can do that easily by changing the visibility from normal to visible. That means that the whole map is explored and there's no fog of war, so you can take a look at the map yourself, just like I am doing in this video basically. The maps in Empires Apart are random, so every time you launch a map, the map is different compared to previous games that you might have played. But there is a certain consistency in the way the map is built up. There are certain rules that you can learn about the map in order to completely understand how the map works. Since Scorching Desert is one of the most played maps at the moment, and since it is my favorite map, I want to take Scorching Desert as an example in this video. One of the examples of the consistency I mentioned earlier is the fact that there are always 2 oases in Scorching Desert. Not 1, not 3, always 2. There are no exceptions to that. Even though the map is completely different every time. You can launch the map 100 times, there will always be 2 oases. Of course, it's not relevant to know the amount of oases that are situated in this map, but it was just an easy example. A more relevant map consistency are the resources that are directly around your base. If you would draw a line from the town center over here towards the middle, like this, there will always be these trees over here. If you go clockwise, you will always encounter stone, then berries, then gold, these back trees, stone, these deer over here, and then the gold, and you're back at the trees again. It's like a circle. Let's take a look at another map. Again, draw that line from the town center towards the middle, and then you find these front trees. These are the front trees. It's not like these trees are the front trees. These trees are the back trees, right? If you go clockwise, again, stone, berries, gold, back trees, stone, deer, gold, and back at the front trees again. I am well aware that my videos are starting to look like the Dora the Explorer videos, but let's do one more. Front trees, stone, berries, gold, back trees, stone, deer, and the gold. There are no exceptions to that rule. If you go in a circle around your base, it's always that order. Do realize that your opponent's base has exactly the same layout. For example, if you scout this gold over here, you know that his front trees are over here, and you know his deer is going to be here. There's stone over here, the back trees over here. There will be gold around here, and somewhere around here are berries. Of course you still want to scout it, but it gives you a good indication of where to go with your scout next. If you want, for example, to know if he is taking his berries over here. The next thing you want to know is that the amount of resources on each resource spot is consistent as well. Let's call this gold over here the front gold. This is the front stone, of course, so this is the back gold and the back stone over here. The total amount of gold over here is 3000 because every gold mine is 500 gold and there are 6 of them, so the total amount of gold is 3000. But do notice that in the back over here, there's only 2000 gold. There is 2000 stone over here because each stone mine is 400 stone and there are 5 of them. But here in the back, there are only 3 stone mines, and each of them is 400 as well, so there's a total of 1200. The idea behind the design of the map is that you take more risk if you take a front resource, so you should always have a higher reward as well. Keep that in mind when you want to place your first storehouse in the early game. If you know your opponent is going to do something aggressive, be safe and take the back resources. The last thing I want to mention about the map that is relevant for the early game is that there are always 6 sheep in the proximity of your starting town center. Aside from these 5 sheep over here that you start with. And these 6 sheep always spawn in a pair as well, as you can see. There are 2 over here, 2 sheep over here, and I think 2 of them are right here. So if you scout like 1 sheep, you know that there is another one close to that one, as you can see. The total amount of sheep that way is 22, because you have 5 over here and the 6 around your town center, which makes a total of 11 sheep. And your opponent is of course 11 sheep as well, so there's a total of 22 sheep in the map every game. Aside from that, there are always 2 boars, at least in a scorching desert. There's one over here, and there was one over here, as you can see. It's important that you scout all of these resources, and especially all of the sheep and both the boars as well. Finally, I do realize that there is way more to discover with the maps, but I doubt that I could mention anything else that is relevant to the early game of Empires Apart regarding the design of the map. I apprehend that I have a big focus on Scorching Desert in this video, but it was merely used as an example of how you should look at the maps yourself when exploring it, for example in a custom game like I mentioned earlier. Perhaps there will be other videos that are dedicated to a certain map in the future. But for now, I hope that you have a slight idea about how Scorching Desert works and how you should look at the maps yourself. On to the sheep! Bah. The first thing you want to do once an Empires Apart game starts is to select your town center and to queue in a villager. Next thing you want to do is to move one of those first starting sheep and to place it as close as possible to the town center. Next thing you do is to select all of your villagers and to just kill the sheep so you can gather from it. If you're in time, you can place the rally point on the sheep as well. At the moment, it is not possible to place your rally point on living sheep. You can only place it on dead sheep. So once the sheep is killed by the first 3 villagers, you want to place that rally point as soon as possible on the dead body of a sheep. I feel like the optimal amount of villagers that can gather from a sheep is 5 at the moment. If you have 6 of them, they can block each other a little bit off.
Yeah, okay. Will do.
I think there are 7 of them right now, and as you can see, these villagers take a much longer distance to travel to the town center compared to the ones that are standing close to it.
Yeah, okay.
And as you can see, these are blocking each other off a little bit as well.
Yeah, going to work.
So what I do when I see more than 5 villagers on a sheep is to just kill another one, a second sheep, and if you do that, you can place the rally point on a sheep as well, just like this, basically.
What is it?
So I have 6 of them right now, and I can make it 5 by just doing this. And these villagers, once they're back at the town center, will try to stand as close as possible to the town center, once they're back at the sheep like this, as you can see. Something quite important that you should take into consideration is that the villagers will always prioritize a dead sheep over a living one. So, for example, once this sheep has decayed, once this food has run out and it's 0, these villagers will move towards this sheep, instead of these 2 sheep that are standing closer to their current position. Because a dead sheep prioritizes over a living sheep, as you can see, they will move towards this sheep. They won't take this sheep at all.
Yeah.
So if you want them to move to this sheep, you want to kill it first.
Yeah, going to work.
In order to get a maximum efficiency, you want to place the sheep in such a way that the villagers will always move to a new sheep that is placed as close as possible to the town center. You can line them up in a square formation, for example. You can prioritize the next sheep by killing it up with a single villager, but make sure that the villagers always have to walk the smallest distance towards the town center. Every sheep is worth 100 food. A villager can carry 10 food before it is necessary for him to walk back towards the town center or a storehouse. However, a dead sheep is losing its food over time. As you can see in this part of the video, the total amount of food only changed from 200 to 280. So the villager is only gathering 80 food from a sheep that is worth 100 food. You are losing 20 food if you are just gathering with a single villager from a sheep. So make sure that one villager is never gathering from a single sheep. You always want to have more villagers on a sheep, not just one. If you are scouting and find any sheep, make sure to return them to your town center immediately, so that your opponent is not able to steal your sheep. At the same time, make sure that your villagers are gathering from the sheep that are standing as close as possible to your town center. I want to give one tip as well. In Empires Apart there are currently no camera hotkeys, but you can still add a control group for the sheep by holding control and using one of the numbers on your keyboard. You can use that to lead the sheep in quite an easy way towards your town center. Finally, yes, it is possible to scout with your sheep. But be careful that your opponent is not stealing your sheep away, because you will lose a lot of food. Let's talk about the boar now. A villager is able to gather 0.8.3 food per second, repeating of course, from a sheep. A boar grants 1.11 food per second. It's a total of 0.3 more compared to the sheep. Optimally, you want to gather from the boar whenever possible. The boar itself is never standing close to the town center or any type of storehouse. It would be a waste of 80 wood if you would build a storehouse next to the boar as well. But you don't want to walk a long distance from the boar towards your town center. You want to keep that distance as small as possible, just like with the sheep. So what you want to do is to lure your boar by attacking it. The first unit that is attacking a boar will be chased by the boar until that unit is either garrisoned, that unit dies, the unit is out of range, or until the boar dies. It's not wise to use your villagers in order to lure a boar, because of 3 reasons. First of all, and most importantly, you lose gather time when you attack a boar. The villagers are kinda slow. They could gather so much more resources in the time that they are walking towards the boar, attacking the boar and walking back to the town center. Secondly, the boar itself has, when chasing a unit, much more movement speed than your villager, so you could lose a lot of HP. You could even lose the villager when you are luring a boar with a villager. Finally, because the villager is such a slow unit, it takes quite a long time before your boar is standing next to the town center. Your villagers should gather from the boar as soon as possible in the game, so you should use a fast unit instead. The only unit that is available in the early game that is fast enough to lure a boar is your scout. So after you ordered your villagers to gather from one of the first 5 sheep, you should always try to find your boar as soon as possible. Use your scout to attack the boar. The boar will be aggroed and is now chasing your scout. Since you could lose a lot of food from an idle sheep, the boar should be next to your town center once the first sheep has depleted. The villagers should then move from the first sheep towards the boar that has just arrived. Use the garrison button to garrison the scout inside the town center, so that the boar will stop chasing but is still standing next to your town center. If a boar is idle for too long, it will walk back to its starting position, but most of the time the first sheep has been depleted already, or it is down to like 0 to 10 food. Kill off the boar when you do realize that the boar tries to walk back. And of course, make sure that it is standing as close as possible to the town center. I have some tips as well for the boar. The scout is outrunning the boar since it has more movement speed, even when the boar is aggroed. Make sure that your scout is not walking too far from the boar, since the boar will lose aggro once the scout is too far from the boar. At the same time, make sure that the scout is not too close to the boar, since it could receive damage from the boar by attacks. The second tip I have is that you need to keep in mind that there are always 2 boars on your side of the map, at least in Scorching Desert, but in a lot of other maps as well. You want to secure both of them by luring them to your base as quick as possible, so that your opponent is not able to take the boars. The third tip I have is that villagers deal bonus damage against the boars, so they can kill them quite fast. But make sure that the villagers are not receiving too much damage from the boars when you try to kill them. You don't want to lose any villagers at any time during the early game. Let's move on to economy or military. And this is probably the most controversial topic of this video. With economy and military, I was referring in that question to the choice between 2 upgrades that you can choose in Empires Apart at level 0. One of them is called Basic Economy Development, and the other one is called Basic Military Development. And I'm not going to talk about a certain build order to obtain economy development or military development as fast as possible, or to talk about certain things that you can do once you hit economy development or military development. Since I think the purpose of this video was to talk about the first few minutes of Empires Apart in general, like the first 2 or 3 minutes. Don't expect any build order videos either at this point, since any patch could change the build order drastically. And they are also very Civ specific. There's so much terrain that even I have not discovered yet at this point that I don't really want to make any videos yet about certain build order for certain civs. So I'm very sorry if that's what people are expecting with this video, but it's not something I can pull off at this point and don't want to pull off since patches could come at any time. So I'm not coming up with any build orders. I can tell you that I always build my first house with the 4th villager that is being produced from the town center. So when my scout is still alive, I have a total of 8 population when I start to construct my first house in the game. On top of that, the choice if you should go for economy or military development should be made at the start of the game. The first 3 villagers should always go for the sheep and eventually the boar. The villagers after those first 3 should either go for the food as well, just like the first 3 villagers, or they should go for the wood instead. You need 400 food for military development, and you need 400 wood for economy development. In my opinion, the 4th villager is very important for the choice between military or economy development. You could let it gather from the food sources and every villager after that should join him. Or you could choose to let it gather from the 4 trees that are positioned directly around the town center, in order to get a fast economy development instead. I do think honestly that both choices are quite viable for all of the civs. I think there are some rules that you should follow as well. First of all, never take the deer before you hit either the basic economy development or the basic military development. You already have the sheep and the boars around your town center, and it's simply not worth it to take the deer as well with that, because the villagers need to walk towards the deer in order to build a storehouse there. So you could use the scout in order to lure some of the deer towards your town center. It's just something I didn't address in this video. Secondly, I think you should always try to gather food from your berries after the deer, sheep and boars run out. You should not build any farms either before your food resources run out, because you would simply waste a lot of wood. Another rule is that you should never try to collect resources without a nearby drop-off point, like a storehouse or a town center. I think the only exceptions are perhaps the trees directly around your town center. There are 4 of them. Finally, of course, never stop producing any villages. Even when you go to the next military or economy development, you can still produce villages during that time. So, on to the final topic. I realized halfway through the production of this video that the quality of the recordings that I was using of Empires Apart was in 720p and not in 1080, which is much better quality, of course. So I'm very sorry for that, but I still wanted to continue since I thought it was not that important to show like beautiful quality of videos or of in-game gameplay. But I'm very sorry for that. Next time the video quality will be much better and I will pay attention to that. I do realize that there are many more topics that could be explored in similar videos that could help players out there. For example, I mentioned the deer earlier because people probably have no idea what to do with the deer in this game, and I have a slight idea, but even I don't really know when to take them and how to optimally take them out and to gather food from them. If you really would like to have a focus on a specific topic in a video like this, feel free to ask me on Discord at any time. Since I would love to know what kind of strategic aspects of the game people have problems with and what kind of problems people encounter when playing this game. Finally, I want to have a special mention to Seka out there, Seka from the beta. Thanks to him I came up with this idea to make such a video. And I want to have a mention to my arch rival Game Video as well, who was very helpful in the production of a video. I would love to have some feedback as well. Just tell me what you think about the video in Discord or I don't know, somewhere. I don't really care, to be honest. Yeah, and then I don't know, people usually back for like likes or dislikes or like I don't give a fuck about that shit. I don't even care if anyone's watching this video, man. It was fun to produce this, and thank you for watching. And I hope I can meet you on a battlefield wherever you are out there, whoever is watching this video until this end. Would love to play games against you and to hear your opinion about Empires Apart and about the things I mentioned in this video, especially the part. This makes no sense at all.